the worst wife in the world, Ginni Thomas, strikes again. All right, so not only does she secretly go to a terrorist event when her husband is a whole damn Supreme Court justice, not only is she involved in trying to get an election overturned through illegal methodologies, she also tried to influence other people as well. New information is out. Okay, let's get to it. Put up Connie Hair. Let's put a picture up. In a new development to the Ginni Thomas saga, she texted a friend whose boss tried to get Trump election challenges all the way to the US Supreme Court. What? Isn't that where her husband works? Yes, that's where her hubby works. All right, Mark Meadows wasn't Thomas's only texting buddy. She was also communicating with none other than Connie Hair, the chief of staff to Representative Gohmert out of Texas, who signed on to 2 failed legal efforts to challenge the results, one of which could have ended up before her husband. And they tried in the US Supreme Court, okay? Thomas and Hair reportedly have a years-long friendship, including attending social outings at which Clarence Thomas was also present. Their text exchanges, which Ginni shared with Meadows, demonstrated the fervor she had in subverting the 2020 election on discredited theories of massive voter fraud. Now, we've already talked about Ginni Thomas being involved in the cult back in the day. She's involved in the cult today as well. It's called the Trump cult. She texted Meadows, chief of staff at the time, things like, you gotta do this for God. All right, that's cult-like language. That's cult-like behavior, right? To overturn democracy because you feel like God is telling you and people around you to do it. So I don't think she ever left the cult at all. And according to at least one conservative who knows the family, the Clarence Thomas family, all right? He says that Ginni does not talk to her husband about these things, right? So you mean to tell me that she talks to everybody else but her husband, that she is engaged in inappropriate conversation to overthrow an election with everybody else except her husband? And it's just a coincidence that her husband was the only Supreme Court justice that voted in the dissent as it relates to a case involving January 6th, the January 6th investigative committee. Just a coincidence. Let's go to the 2 text messages from Hair. It read, was on a call with the Trump campaign manager and legal folks for a briefing this morning. We are seeing this through to the end of the court count battle. Hair posted on November 7th, 4 days after the election, and on November 21st, Hair posted massive amounts of voter fraud in big cities throughout the contested states. All lies, by the way, but she's texting this, right? The Supreme Court ultimately decided not to take up the lawsuit against then Vice President Mike Pence or a Texas case the lawmaker supported against states Trump lost. Thomas's newly reported exchanges with Hair are amplifying calls for Justice Thomas to recuse himself from any election or insurrection-related matters that might come before the court. Seems like the noble damn thing to do, right? I guarantee you, if Clarence Thomas was a left-leaning justice, they would have impeached him by now. He would have been impeached, okay? Democrats in DC in particular are doing a horrible job messaging this against Republicans, holding them to the accountability factor as they should be. So obviously, you're not going to get Republicans to do a damn thing about this. They're not going to say anything about it. But Democrats at the highest level of our government and political narrative in this country have failed to approach this adequately, appropriately, all right? Okay, Stephen Gillers of the NYU School of Law is one of those calling for Thomas to recuse himself. Gillers told CNN, and I quote, Mrs. Thomas has a First Amendment right to speak publicly and forcefully on issues that might come before the Supreme Court without thereby forcing recusal of her husband. But in the current situation, her interests are caught up in cases that could come before the court. There lies the rub, right? There it is, right there. Not only, Professor, is she involved in cases that could come before the court, she has been involved in cases that have come before the court. She was connected to Citizens United. She has spoken at functions and rallies and actually took paychecks from conservative organizations that filed lawsuits that actually went before the United States Supreme Court. And he did not recuse himself then, and he's not going to recuse himself now. Yasmine, thoughts on this?
Yeah, I was laughing earlier when you were talking about their marriage and like, what, do they just not talk to each other? Because it reminded me of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which is like, it's quite a compliment to compare them to Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. But when you talk about cult-like behavior, right? One of the things about cults and people who are prone to getting into cults is that they kind of have to go all in on belief, on faith, right? There's no other option. Otherwise, you wouldn't buy anything that the cult is selling you.
That's right.
We were talking a little bit in the break about, I tend to give people the benefit of the doubt. Like, surely you know what you're doing, right? Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they really do believe the things that they're saying. And it's not all just a political stunt. And I think what we're seeing from a lot of these text messages that are coming out, specifically from Ginni Thomas, is that she really does believe that what she's doing is the work of God or whatever she thinks she's doing. I don't really know.
Yeah, and I think Clarence Thomas believes just like her. I think both of them are part of their own cult. I think he's also part of the Trump cult as well. And I think he's good at hiding it because of his profession. But that is why he refuses to recuse himself from cases that he should. I mean, nobility would say recuse yourself of these cases. He won't do it, all right? He's risking his entire professional career to file a dissent that won't make a difference. That's, once again, a cult-like behavior. You're risking your entire career to file a dissent that will not overturn the conclusion of a case. All right.